Hello from San Francisco. My name is Brian Madden, and I'm joined today by Sammy Ginger. Hello, Sammy.
Hey.
You are with Simplivity, where you own the VDI solution for them. And we're going to talk about Simplivity and hyperconvergence and VDI and all that fun kind of stuff.
Yep.
But I want to back up and I've never met you before, so what's your background?
Yeah, so I actually come to Simplivity from out of the channel. So I spent a significant amount of time doing pre and post sales for channel partners and its customers, doing mostly implementations and sizing engagements, that type of thing. And I was introduced to Simplivity through the channel, came on site, got to see a demo. I was like, man, this is really kind of a cool product. I want to start using this in my VDI engagements. And a couple months later, I actually found out that they were trying to create a solutions team and actually come up with their solution offering. So I was like, I got to be a part of that. And so I joined them.
Oh, that's awesome. Congrats.
Thanks.
And let's talk about Simplivity, because I think a lot of people have heard of Simplivity, hyperconverged. You know, I can buy a box, it says Simplivity on it, it's a hyperconverged appliance. But give me the rundown for maybe people who are not as familiar with Simplivity themselves.
Yeah, sure. So little background on Simplivity. We started in 2009, spent about 43 months in development before releasing our first product. And we wanted to take some of the complexities that are associated with traditional IT, which has so many different products, vendors, management interfaces that, it's kind of hard for administrators and IT leaders to keep up with all of that. And so what Simplivity is able to offer is all of these IT functions and capabilities in a single 2U box that's built on a commodity x86 hardware. And we can deploy 2 or more of these boxes together into something what we call a federation. And this federation is what delivers that massively scalable pool of shared resources for customers to use.
So I think a lot of people know about hyperconverged appliances. It's compute and storage kind of all together in one box, and it does what used to be a lot of different boxes and data centers kind of all in one place.
Yep.
But I wonder if you can go into a little bit more specifics about Simplivity's hyperconverged appliance and like what exactly this thing does.
Yeah, so Simplivity is able to do all of those things through its data virtualization platform. It all comes down to 3 things. So first we have our accelerated data efficiency, whereby we are deduping, optimizing, and compressing all data at inception with a fine granularity of 4 to 8K. In addition to that, Simplivity is offering enhanced performance to its end users through its accelerator card. We're also able to offer level of compression for our customers of about 40 to 1. So whereby customers would normally have 40 terabytes on spinning disk, we're able to reduce that down to 1 terabyte. And actually a third of our customers are able to get efficiency of 100 to 1. Our second is native data protection. So out of the box, we're able to offer business continuity and data protection with your business apps and your business data, whereby you normally need a third-party piece of hardware or software in order to do so. We don't require that. It's all in your single device. And because of our efficiencies around I/O and WAN optimization, customers are actually able to do their backups in a matter of minutes or even seconds versus hours that it would normally take. So the third thing is our global unified management, which is a VM-centric interface where we're able to manage everything from the site level to the federation level, all the way down to your VMs and your data stores, the backup policies that are associated with the data stores. And what's kind of cool about that is that we're essentially passing on the ability to do all these management functions to your, let's say, VDI admin. So whereby you would normally have to wait several weeks or days or who knows how long to get your LUNs expanded in a traditional environment, your VDI admin is able to just quickly and easily expand his data store through our interface, and it's through a couple clicks.
In your interface, it's right in vCenter.
Yes, exactly. It's just a plugin for vCenter, and you click to your Simplivity tab or the Simplivity web plugin, and it's right there, everything that you need.
So I want to talk a little bit more, you're a VDI person, I'm a VDI person, we're talking to VDI people, I imagine. Let's dig into the Simplivity hyper-converged appliance in the context of VDI.
Yep.
You know, because everyone's been talking about VDI and when's it going to sort of really catch on, and we can talk for weeks about what that means and everything. But the reality is a lot of VDI has been limited due to the complexity of all the hardware and all the, as you mentioned, you need the storage and these servers, and you need this backup system and this thing, and the network optimization and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of people have talked about hyper-converged infrastructure as being a perfect fit for VDI. And I just wonder, do you agree with that? And B, how do you see Simplivity fitting in when it comes to VDI?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, absolutely. Hyper-converged is huge for VDI. So when we think about customers who are going from, let's say, a greenfield installation of VDI, they bring in a channel partner. So my experience coming on site, a lot of customers try to see if they can fit VDI into their existing SAN and on their existing server hardware. And all it takes is a 5-minute discussion before you go, hey, don't do that. So what that means is that they're going to go and purchase an additional SAN, additional compute, network, all of that just for that one workload. It is not exactly what I'd call cost-effective. Huge upfront cost to deploy VDI. Now, where hyperconvergence offers such a huge benefit is that, all right, now we're talking a single device. So we need to do our pilot implementation. We want to know what our user workload looks like on our hardware. And actually, I think it's Gabe Knuth who has the quote, where servers are predictable, desktops are random.
Yeah.
And you really don't know what your desktops look like on the hardware you're deploying it on until they're actually on that hardware. So with Simplivity, all you need is 2 of our devices. You install them into your data center. You've got your storage, you've got your compute, your WAN optimization, your data protection, one device. You deploy your end users on it. And when you're ready to roll into your production deployment, you're just adding the additional cubes that you need in order to expand out for your additional capacity.
I think that's something that a lot of people don't really consider is that, a lot of the big sort of traditional SANs, you can see all these costs. Oh, we can do it for, $200 a user or $500 a user, whatever it is. But it's not really that. It's $100,000 entry point. But hey, you can put 2,000 users on this.
Yep.
And what I'm hearing from you in the hyperconverged is something that I think maybe a lot of people don't think about is what you build with your first 2 appliances is the exact linear scalability to add. It's not like that can only scale you up to your first 1,000 users. Then you have to throw that away and have a new architecture to get you from 1,000 to 10,000, then throw that away, and then do your new one from 10,000 to 50,000.
Right. You're looking at only sizing for what you need, when you need it, and when that workload becomes a reality for your environment. So kind of one of the cool, unique things that Simplivity offers in addition to that is that, let's say you've figured out what your users look like as far as storage IOPS profile and how they perform on Simplivity's hardware. Well, if you get in a new use case where the users need, say, really intense GPU or really intense CPU, RAM, that type of thing, you're able to add that additional compute capacity through what we call a compute node, which, it could leverage your existing hardware. You just attach it with an NFS mount to our devices, and you're able to take advantage of all of the benefits of Simplivity storage while still taking advantage of the compute capabilities of, hardware that maybe it's going end of life or it's not new to your environment. It's kind of cool.
And you can work with GPUs, right? If I want to plug a GPU into a Simplivity box.
So yes, through our OmniStack devices, you can actually add in a NVIDIA grid card, I believe the K1, K2. Or if you wanted to add multiple NVIDIA grids, you could add it to a device that's on the hardware compatibility list for NVIDIA and just attach it through what I explained, the compute nodes.
And then I want to talk a little bit about the performance also, because we talked about, Gabe's quote about desktops being random. Server infrastructure that's optimized for servers, file servers are a lot more reads, versus desktops, there's a lot more reads and writes. And we find that, IOPS is such a big deal when it comes to VDI because we don't realize it. We expect our disks to be essentially instant. You don't want users when they click on the start button to have to wait for the start menu to come up or to click Word and then wait for the splash screen.
Yep.
But now in this case, since you're doing the hardware for the storage as well as the hardware for the compute, I feel like we have to have a conversation about storage performance and IOPS and that kind of stuff.
Sure, absolutely. So the way that we're able to provide such a great end user experience, high performing desktop experience, is through our data virtualization platform. And it comes down to two pieces of that platform. First is our inline deduplication. We're offloading a lot of that I/O by essentially making that write. When we go to make that write in software, we're able to determine whether or not that block already exists on spinning disk. If it does, we acknowledge the write, and it never gets written to disk. You don't need to write it twice.
And that's important too. Sorry to interrupt.
No.
It's inline, so it's especially with VDI. You know, I have 1,000 VDI users, but they're all using Windows 10. They're all using the same version of Office. They're all using that kind of stuff. So probably, you know, a lot of the blocks are identical from user to user to user. And so in your case, you're talking about, you know, this is happening even at the write level where, you know, one user has to, you know, write a block to disk, and the Simplivity, whatever, in the ether of Simplivity, it knows that that block has been written.
Yep.
So you don't have to write it again. It's just like instantaneous, like, yep, I'm done.
Exactly. So, I mean, the best I/O is the one that you don't have to do, Gene Omdahl. And if you're never having to incur that I/O, well, that's fantastic because it's literally looks instantaneous to the desktop. The other thing we're able to do is predictive caching. So VDI in particular, when you think about boot storms, when you think about login storms, refresh storms, recompose, all of that very I/O intensive. So if we're able to store those commonly read blocks in cache, we're able to read them very quickly and kind of serve up that I/O very, very fast to the desktop without having to, you know, go down and back up.
And I was going to ask you about what that means within cache, but I guess I don't care. Like, is it, you know, SSD cache, memory cache? But I guess part of the beauty really is, like, I kind of don't care. I mean, I just know that if I have all my users who are going to log in at the same time, again, I mean, 90% of their disk images, even if they're personal images and everyone's, you know, quote unquote different, they're not really that different because they're all Windows 10. They're all Windows, same service pack. They're all same everything.
Yep, they're not really all that different when it comes to a boot, a login, that type of thing. And actually, we just produced a white paper. It's available on our website where we've got kind of a really good representation of what a true boot storm, true login storm looks like from Simplivity's perspective. Login VSI was our choice for doing our benchmarking.
Love those folks. Good
Love
choice.
those guys.
Yeah.
And we actually decided to do on 4 of our nodes 1,000 desktops, and we wanted to get a good sampling of a login storm. So we had 1,000 desktops log in 1,000 seconds. So
Oh, wow.
one desktop every second. And normally, Login VSI recommends that you do the test over a course of about 2,800 seconds. And we actually, when we ran it in 1,000 seconds, it performed really, really well.
What is that? 1,000 seconds is like 17 minutes or something, right? 15 minutes?
Yeah,
somewhere
just
in there.
about.
So it's like 1,000 logons in under 20 minutes.
Exactly. So one
And you
desktop
won.
every second. Oh yeah, we were well under their threshold still.
Oh, wow.
And Login VSI was so blown away by it. They're like, really? This really happened?
They thought, are you sure you set it up right?
Yeah, exactly. So they went through and they audited our entire environment. They're like, this is cool.
Oh, fantastic. That's awesome. So one of the other things that I like a lot as we're thinking about Simplivity is something I think a lot of people don't consider with VDI, but that is like the data protection side of things. And maybe I'm not using that word right. I mean, like with just user backups and user resiliency if there's failures that happen. Because I think a lot of people with VDI, it's, quote, just a desktop. So you think, who backs up your desktops? It's all on a file server, who cares? But if a user walks into their desk and their desktop's blown away, it's a lot of effort to kind of put it back together and get these applications and download and everything. And then when you go to VDI, it's like, well, now everything's in the data center, so it's even more expensive to do, like, backing up a data center, storage is way more expensive than backing up, desktop storage. So I feel like VDI and desktop backup, a lot of people are not doing that.
Well, not only that, you have to keep in mind too, when you move your users from a physical PC to your data center, there's kind of a level of expectation that you're backing up and protecting their apps and data, which is what they care about the most. So when you think about that, if a user does come in and suddenly they either can't get to their desktop or they're not getting to their data, they're lighting the torches and sharpening the pitchforks and coming after your IT people.
Because they want VDI to fail almost. Like it's almost everything from the user standpoint. You know, like you, IT, took away my desktop.
Yes.
And so it's like a higher bar, like everything that isn't exactly perfect.
Exactly.
But I feel like a lot of this, and tying back to both the resiliency that you can get, which is, again, just kind of built into the platform, also with the performance gains, I think you can almost deliver a better performing desktop with VDI than you would if they had like some 4-year-old Dell or whatever.
Absolutely. And the way we kind of approach the resiliency, data protection, kind of comes down to two components here. So at the cluster level, we're able to withstand the failure of a single node in the cluster. Users just fail over to their secondary copy of their data. And you're looking at worst case scenario, hey, I got logged out, I got to log back in.
Because that's essentially like a box fails, all your data is written to multiple nodes.
Yep.
So it's kind of like the equivalent of a desktop goes down hard, but you can restart it again and it's like within right where they left off.
Exactly. And it depends on where the failure is. So if you're failing, we're pulling cables in the data center and you lose an entire host, we're able to fail that desktop over through a restart to another node. Or if you lose the controller, which is the appliance, you're just looking at a quick blip, switch over to your secondary. There's no interruption of the desktop for the end user.
Oh, because the VM's still running, so
Right.
it's just like routing a different way.
Exactly. So that one would be no need for the restart versus losing the entire host. If you lose the compute, then you're looking at a vCenter HA event. So flops it over to the other host.
But that's
Minor.
yeah, like, right. And you're thinking like we're talking like you're pulling the cord
Oh yeah.
on the entire rack unit. I mean, this is a big failure thing, and the fact like that's like tripping over your power cord on your laptop or whatever. your
Exactly.
desktop. So they reconnect back in. They're kind of back where they were.
Yep.
And yeah, that's.
And what's really cool about Simplivity's offering, when we did some of our testing around these failures where we go and just pull cables, very aggressive test, we ran login VSI during these failure events just to see how do the desktops perform when we're in kind of this degraded state. And again, available on our website, our white paper kind of shows this across 3 different types of workloads where we have 4 hosts, fail 1, now these desktops are running on 3 hosts. And we're still offering a really performant desktop experience to the end users, even though you're in this sort of degraded state. So that kind of offers that peace of mind to your IT department and to your business that the users aren't going to go, switch me back to my physical PC, like I'm demanding something else, even in the event of doing like maintenance operations. You can do your maintenance in the middle of the day. Users aren't going to be that upset.
Yeah, and I guess it comes down to a matter of math. If you have 4 nodes and you lose one, then you have to sort of assume 33% more on every node.
Yep.
But with stuff like login VSI and running the test, you can say that, oh, even at that, it's still very usable. And of course, that's only a temporary thing while you're doing an upgrade or while something has failed like that.
Yep, exactly. And then when we talk about kind of at the site level, so if you lose your entire site, one of the things that Simplivity is able to offer built in is this idea of backup and recovery to a secondary site, or backing up to like AWS and recovering out of AWS to a secondary site. And that's kind of cool because if your users really only care about their data and their apps, which they should, when you lose an entire site due to, say, a natural disaster or who knows what went on in your data center, users can fail over their data secondary site, able to get it, just gets redirected down to their desktop, they're happy.
So it's everything you do at sort of the WAN optimization level or to AWS is sort of post your deduplication processing?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's cool. So all this, like looking at blocks, right level, like you're only sort of like block level WAN syncing, block level to AWS.
Yep, and that's kind of what enables that ability to reduce your backup time down from a couple hours to a couple minutes or a couple seconds.
Yeah, yeah. So Sammy, you talked about you own the VDI solution for Simplivity.
Yep.
We've talked a lot about sort of the hardware and how you make it work and what it does do and all that kind of stuff. But let's back up. Since your background is a VDI consultant in the field, how do you sort of merge these two worlds together? You know, like on the one hand, you've got, okay, the Simplivity hardware and solution does this. You've got what you know as a VDI consultant, what's needed, you know, to make VDI happen. How do you take Simplivity and make it do the VDI? Like, sort of take me through that.
Make it do the
product
VDI.
to solution, you know?
Sure. So when we think about a VDI deployment, just generally speaking, you kind of have these three groups that you care the most about. You've got your end users. End users expect a desktop experience that's equal to or better than their existing desktop experience. If you don't provide that to them, they're going to be upset. On your other hand, you've got your business. And the business wants to provide that great experience for their end users because they want them to adopt it. They want them to be happy doing their day-to-day. But they also don't want to spend a ton of money providing that experience. You know, they want the most bang for their buck, so to speak.
This is very well said, like treading lightly on, they don't want to spend the most money.
Right. I mean, it's not that they don't care about the end users. You know, they don't want to give them a budget solution. They want to give them that fantastic experience without breaking the bank. And that's kind of the key thing here. And how do you find that balance? It's really tough. And then kind of caught in the middle between them is like the IT guys that are managing everything, right? They tend to be what I like to call the meat shields between the end users and the business, right? So they don't get a great experience. They're calling IT. IT has to then translate that back up to the business as to why, you know, the end users are not happy. And in traditional IT, we're looking at deploying a completely separate subset of siloed infrastructure just for this one workload. I mean, I don't know if I can hit that home even harder than that. The fact of the matter is that you have to have dedicated server, dedicated network, dedicated storage, all to support a single workload.
The single workload being VDI. It's
the
like
single workload,
VDI,
yes, exactly.
It's like you have your whole data center for everything, and then you have yahoos like me who are like, oh, if you want to do VDI, well, you got to have different storage, you got to have different networking needs, you got to have different compute. Oh, you need GPUs in your servers, you don't have those anywhere else. And so it's all that different stuff just for some desktops. Right.
And to kind of size that up front and make decisions around what SAN do you need and what, you know, tier of storage, all of that up front is super difficult to do. So what do the businesses do? Business can spend a ton of money by flash arrays and really high-end compute, all of that. You know, make their end users really, really happy. But they are never going to see a return on investment. It's hard to realize ROI with VDI as it is. By the time they're going to do a refresh cycle, yeah, they will have not hit their ROI. That said, they have the option to kind of go with a budget solution. You know, cut corners and give their end users exactly what fits into their budget. Well, if the end users don't adopt it, well, they're never realizing ROI. Somebody's writing their resume. And then we have the option to kind of come up with a compromise where you're providing some great functionality or you're sizing just for a very small subset of the workload up front, making a small portion of the business happy. And then when you go expand that, because you're like, oh, hey, I can fit another 50, 100 users on that, no worries. And yeah,
I feel like that's the most people actually end up doing.
Yeah. And then they end up being unhappy because they find out 18 months from now that they have to go and purchase another subset of siloed infrastructure. And I mean, how is IT not pulling their hair out? Because it just becomes this management burden. And Simplivity brings to the table a really simplified deployment on this commodity x86 hardware. We're offering a really performant desktop. We're offering that resiliency, backup, recovery of the desktop. And all through that single global all through that single global management interface.
From my standpoint, you know, I'm looking at what Simplivity is doing as an engineer, and it's exciting.
Yep.
And you know, I think VDI is exciting. The hover is exciting. I like this stuff. But we talked about a lot of different things. I mean, you know, when you're talking to your other engineering friends, what are you telling them about like what Simplivity does with VDI?
Sure. So I guess it's going to finally be the year of VDI, 8th year running. No, so when it comes down to hyperconvergence and specifically Simplivity's solution offering around VDI, we're able to deliver a highly performant desktop experience and out of the box, quickly deploying these individual building blocks that scale so quickly, so easily. I mean, we're taking the time to deploy down from months, I mean, sometimes it's quarters, to a couple days or even a couple hours. That is huge. If you can get your pilot rolling in like a couple hours, get it up, users deployed, performing on their, using our hardware, you can roll into your production rollout of VDI within a couple weeks. We're reducing that time it takes to do these projects from several months down to a couple weeks. It's huge.
And while it's happening, by the way, you don't have to be a SAN admin. You don't have to be a storage admin. You don't have to be a backup admin. You don't have to be a WAN. Like, can you use vCenter? Click, click, click.
Not only that, I was going to say, if you could name 3 things I'm really not an engineer of, it would be storage, backup, network, all of those things. I can use this device, have no problem deploying storage, have no problem carving out for backup policies. All of that's so easy to use. Simple, single interface.
That's fantastic, and it allows VDI admins to be the Windows desktop admins that they really need to be and not worry about the other stuff.
Exactly, and not only that, the really, really important thing here is that we're providing that fantastic experience across the board. So IT's happy because they've got this kind of easy to use, easy to deploy solution. We've got our end users getting this fantastic experience with their VDI environment, and then the business is happy because they're not breaking the bank in the process of deploying this.
Okay, let's next steps. People watching this, Simplivity.com.
Yep.
You've got the Twitter.
Yes, if you want to follow anything as far as our solution offering goes and kind of the next latest and greatest as it comes to VDI at Simplivity, you can follow me on Twitter at SammyGinger or follow Simplivity at Simplivity Corp.
And all the white papers you mentioned, you've got the login VSI test results.
Yep.
You've got other papers around sizing, performance, architecture.
Yep. We've got a brand new reference architecture on Horizon V6. That'll be available on our website as well.
Fantastic. Well, Sammy Ginger, fantastic meeting you today.
Yeah.
Appreciate you taking the time to come in. We'll look for you, hopefully, at Bri Forum next year and the various, Synergy and VMworld and all those kinds of events.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And to all of you watching, thank you so much. From San Francisco, this is Brian Madden. Have a good VDI day.